Okay, everybody, welcome to Scranton City Council's Tuesday Public Caucus. Today is Tuesday, September 22nd, 2020. I just want to welcome everyone. Hope everyone is doing well today. So we'll start out the caucus by going through a few items that I have and taking a look at the agenda, and then I'll turn it over to Lori and Kevin to see if they have anything, and then we'll go around the room to see if anyone has any items to discuss in terms of the agenda, and then just for the good of the order. And I think we're still waiting on Councilman Schuster, but we'll get started. The first thing I wanted to mention was we did receive 3 letters of interest from individuals in the city of Scranton who were interested in serving on the city ethics board, which I was really pleased by. They were Matthew Meyer, TJ Finley, and Mike Stanilka. So we received their letters of interest and resumes within the last few days. The deadline for submission was yesterday at 4:30. I would ask now that, over the next few days, if everyone would take time to review these letters of interest and resume, and then hopefully by next week during the caucus, we can come together and decide on who those 2 appointments would be. And then we'll have Kevin draft legislation to put on our agenda, appointing those individuals. I believe one term goes until 2021 and one term goes until 2022. Am I correct, Lori?
Yes, that's correct. One position has a 1-year term and the second position has a 2-year term. Correct.
Okay, thank you. So we'll, if everyone could review those over the next few days, and then, we'll discuss that in our caucus next Tuesday. We do have a September 29th caucus coming up with the mayor and the business administrator on the estimated 2020 budget impact from the COVID-19. As you know, and we've discussed this in the last few weeks, the last update we had was on June 10th, 2020. So we'll receive an update on that, and also an update on the licensing and inspections and permits review that was going to be done in-house, and on the blight program that the administration is working on. So that is one meeting that is coming up. In terms of agenda items, when Councilman Schuster gets in here, I just want to ask him and ask all of you if you would consider, there's a motion in our guide, Councilman Schuster was going to make it, to bring back the capital budget to vote on it. However, I would like to request if we could just leave that on the table for now. We did not yet receive from the administration answers to questions that the public had submitted. And I think that council had a question or 2 as well on that. So if everybody wouldn't mind, if we could just leave that on the table for this week, and then hopefully by next week, we'll have the answers to those questions, and then we can bring it back and take a vote on it. Is everybody okay with that?
Absolutely.
Yes, okay. The one thing I want to point out, Ms. Schumacher had made a comment in her comments, public comment about why the administration submitted just a 3-year capital budget, when if you look at the Home Rule Charter, the administration is required to submit a 5-year capital budget. And I was a little confused on this myself, but I went back and looked. The last capital budget that council voted on was in 2017. So it would be for the 2018 capital budget, then moving forward 5 years, which the previous administration did do. So that would take you out until 2020, I had to add on my fingers there, 2022. Or no, 2023, I'm sorry. So the administration is just basically, adding more detail to the capital budget. They don't necessarily have to take it from 2020, 5 years out, because the capital budget for 5 years from 2018 onward already exists. So they would have to come back before council with a new capital budget in 2023. Okay, so I just wanted to clear that up because I was a little confused on that myself. Let's see, the only other thing in terms of the agenda, we did have questions, or I did have questions on the RACB legislation, the legislation to demolish some private residences in the city, some condemned resident houses that were condemned, and also some public facilities in the city. We didn't receive information on that, nor do we receive any information on the Kaiser Valley the pumping station, the grant to acquire some of those properties. Usually I would want to table this until we got all the information, but I was looking at the deadline for these three pieces of legislation. And the deadline is I believe next Wednesday. So I'm still going to want the information. This is just me personally. I'll see how everybody else feels, but I don't want to table it because then I'm afraid we're really coming right up against that deadline. And no matter what the answers are, we still want the city to go and receive that grant money. So if everybody would be okay with that, I'd like to take a final vote on those three pieces.
I'm good with that as long as we try to put next Tuesday, as a deadline to get a response to those questions.
Yeah, definitely. And Councilman Schuster, are you on the line?
Yeah, I'm on my phone here. I got my Windows 10 is updated.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Before you came in, I just wanted to say this. We have you making a motion tonight during the meeting to take from the table the capital budget, file of the council number 2020. But we just all agree that we'd like to keep that on the table. So we don't want you to make that motion tonight because we didn't receive answers to the questions yet that we received from the public and some questions from council. So we'd like to keep that on the table until we receive the answers to the questions that were received, and then we'll bring it up next week. Okay?
Yeah, that sounds good to me because I had the same concerns when I didn't see any of the answers yet.
Okay, so we'll do that. Other than that, the agenda in terms of fifth order is pretty straightforward. We do have the resolution that Solicitor Hayes came up with in terms of the transportation of the liquefied natural gas through the city and the surrounding communities. 5C is just a technical glitch that happened with the grant program, so they're correcting that. 5D is the multimodal transportation fund grant that the city's submitting on behalf of the Laceworks for the Laceworks project for some improvements out there. And then we have the three appointments. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to talk about or bring up in the caucus in terms of agenda items? We'll start there. Everybody's good on the agenda?
I know we got an email from, I think it only might have came to me and you, Bill, about 7A, that, they won't become actual city employees until after they finish their Act 120 certification.
Okay.
The Solicitor Hayes, is that correct?
Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, so I had a conversation with the city's labor solicitor regarding the proposed resolution, which would permit the city to cover the costs associated with a prospective patrol officer's Act 120 certification training. And what was explained to me was that it's a conditional offer of employment conditioned upon the successful completion of the Act 120 certification program. In other words, if they don't complete it, they don't become an employee of the city. So that was his understanding as to how that would be implemented.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, I have no problem with the program as long as, they're not going to become employees prior to, or at the moment that they're offered this conditional employment. Because I believe the Act 120 program is over 900 hours.
Right.
So you would think that would take over a year. Where in relation to the fire department, I think theirs is only 6 to 8 weeks. So, but I have no problem with it as long as they don't have city employees, if they don't become city employees until after the completion of the program.
Yeah, the resolution indicates it's a conditional offer of employment. So if you or someone else maybe on the question wants to clarify that that's our understanding, and in the event that it's not implemented in a manner that is outlined in the resolution, that we reserve the right to revisit this issue. That might be a good way to address your concerns.
Yes, I could do that. Thank you.
Okay,
And-
does anybody else have anything on the agenda? Any specific things on agenda items? Okay, all right, good. Kevin, do you have anything else in terms of legal, on the legal
No.
side of things?
Well, I know, just to follow up on what consumed most of our time at last week's meeting, the Board of Commissioners of Lackawanna County took up a resolution on September 16, so last Wednesday, regarding the intergovernmental cooperation agreement. And I believe it was approved. And it had, the intergovernmental agreement had the amendments which we had requested, relating to the change in the dates and the time frame for termination. So at this point in time, I think we were all still waiting to see if the business administrator and treasurer believe that it's feasible for the county to be engaged for purposes of the delinquent refuse bills. So if you like, I can follow up with Mr. Dealey and Mrs. Sheridan on that issue. Because I
Yeah,
haven't heard anything back
that'd be
from
great.
you, Bill.
Yeah, that'd be fine. That's good.
Okay. Other than that, I think as you guys, as council probably saw, there was oral argument also last Wednesday on the Act 511 tax appeal from Judge Gibbons' order that was entered last December. So the oral argument was in bank, which means before it was in front of the entire panel of Commonwealth Court judges. So hopefully we'll have a decision on that appeal within the next month or so. Also on Monday, there was the oral argument on the tripling, or I guess it was, a hearing on the tripling of the LST tax before Judge Thomas Munley. I was not able to attend, but I know that Lori was there, and I really only know what was reported in the newspaper, and that is that the judge was inclined to wait to see what happens with the Commonwealth Court before making a determination on the LST tax. But in the event that there's no decision by mid-December, he will, the parties can request, request a status, I guess, on that. Was that
Okay.
consistent with what you heard, Lori?
Yes, that is a true and correct, I guess, interpretation of Judge Munley's decision yesterday, that he was going to wait to see what Commonwealth Court, and then he would render a decision by mid-December if no ruling had been made.
Okay. It seems, I mean, everything is all past practices are somewhat been turned on their side because of the pandemic, but it would seem to, usually when you have oral argument before the court, you have an opinion within 30 to 60 days, even though that could vary. So that's a reasonable time frame to have a decision made by the Commonwealth Court. And that's basically it as far as I can think of right now, Bill.
Okay, thank you so much, Kevin. Lori, do you have anything else?
No, I don't. Just procedurally, we're removing the motion, but then we have we have Dr. Rothchild making a motion. There's 3 OECD related pieces, and that is a request from OECD. Actually, it's a requirement to table the legislation for 30 days because they need to have that window to accept public comment in their office. So we're happy to do that.
Okay, thank you so much. And I did forget to note too that we received a response from, I had asked several questions about 6A, 6B, and 6E last week, and we did receive a lengthy response from Eileen Cipriani, the executive director, answering all those questions. So I appreciate that. And I'm sorry, was someone saying something before I cut them off?
Bill, it's Kevin. I think pursuant to a request by Councilwoman Rothchild, I reached out to the administration to see what the status of the legislation on the health department. They had indicated, that we had tabled it, and I think they were assuming that we were going to take some type of action. My position is this: if they want to propose a health department, I think that's certainly within their purview to do that. However, my concern was the citation that they made, which really only governs, based on my reading, counties are allowed, county Department of Health. So it's a very specific class of departments. So I had a back exchange with their counsel, and I will see what they propose. But I did follow up on that issue, Dr. Rothchild.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that. I was actually wondering if that went anywhere. So
Sure, I'll forward you the exchange I had with them on that issue.
And then on that, in that same vein, we also tabled the legislation authorizing the city, I guess, to accept the backhoe per the landfill agreement with Keystone Sanitary Landfill. And I think when we tabled it, we were waiting for information on documentation related to the backhoe, and then also documentation related to any other items or equipment that was received or donated from KSL as part of that landfill agreement. So, we'll act on that as soon as we have something in writing from the administration. But Kevin, can you touch base with the law department on that? I'm not sure exactly where they are with it.
Yeah, basically, they were asking us to pass a resolution which permitted the city to accept some type of heavy equipment, which it already has. So I will follow up with them. Yeah, and I think that's exactly right. Council said, okay, before we do that, can we have some confirmation as to the value of the equipment, and as long as we're on the issue, can give us some more information on the other donations which have been made pursuant to that, I guess, settlement agreement over the sewer authority. So I will follow up with council, with Attorney O'Brien on that.
Okay, thank you. The only other thing I had before I turn it over to the council members to see if they have any items they'd like to discuss, we did receive questions about the license plate reader, the grant that the city's going for through the police department. I know Councilman Schuster had some questions on that, as well as Mr. Coyne, who submitted questions. So that's only in sixth order tonight. But Mrs. Reed, if you can just double check at some point this week and just let the administration know that we like the answers to those prior to final passage, which would be next week. That's all I have in terms of the agenda. I'll start with Councilman Donahue. Kyle, do you have anything for the good of the order that you'd like to discuss in the caucus?
One thing I did get an answer on one of the questions we got last week about the recycling of plastics. The numbers that are acceptable are 1, 2, and 4. I knew it was 3 of them, but 3 is excluded from that. So it's 1, 2, and 4. And I'll announce that at the meeting tonight too. Okay,
thank you. Councilman McAndrew, anything?
I'm okay right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Schuster, anything?
No, at this point, no. Thanks.
Okay. And Dr. Rothchild, anything?
yes, I just did have one thing. Since we talked tonight about a few of the motions that had been tabled previously, do we have a better way of tracking them so those things don't get lost in the shuffle?
Yeah, usually, so with the two pieces of legislation that we tabled, we really directed the administration to take action so that then when we would get something back from them, that would trigger us to say, okay, now we'll entertain this. So usually when we table something, it's for further discussion from the council, or we're looking for further information. So I think, and Lori, correct me if I'm wrong, the way that we track that in terms of the council office is in the file when we send a letter to the mayor, for example, as we did with the backhoe legislation, we would wait then for a response on that.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, it's just obviously not something visible to us as council members. Like, we'd have to reach out to Mrs. Reed if and say, hey, like, what do we have tabled right now? Because there's been like some time that lapsed with the one piece that I was interested in particular. So, otherwise, without getting a response, like you said, to then trigger it to come back onto the agenda, I just wondering if there's another way of knowing.
Okay, no, that's a good point. Thank you. Okay, anybody else have anything for the good of the order? All right. I don't have anything else. There was some outstanding things that I had asked about last week that we're still waiting for some information on. I also have some answers to questions that were posed. One of the things, I guess I'll bring it up now because it's gonna, I think, impact the 2021 budget. There was questions about ECTV and how they get their funding. I had a conversation this afternoon with Mark Migliori from ECTV, and last week, what I had said was ECTV, the only money that they receive is from the grant funding that was included in the franchise agreement. They don't receive any money from the actual franchise agreement fee. That money from the grant was spaced out over a number of years, and that has been exhausted. So at this point, moving forward, they're not receiving any funding from the city for whatever reason. But they do need money to operate. They need money, to run ECTV, the programming, the people that work there, so on and so forth. So I had a discussion with them way back in, I think, January or February. And I know that they've spoken to the mayor and her administration. So what we're going to look at doing is putting a line item in the budget to actually fund ECTV. And the way that we would do that is through the Comcast franchise fee that we receive, which is roughly $1 million a year, depending on the number of subscribers that subscribe to Comcast. So, I mean, we'll discuss this when the budget is on our agenda and all that. But I think that we need to make sure that they can operate and they can, run. I think, again, ECTV is invaluable for us as a council because of how we broadcast our meetings and then all the other programming, the other meetings throughout the county that they broadcast. And I think people really appreciate that, and it gives them a good look into how their government operates. So I did talk to Mark Migliori today, and we're going to continue to discuss that between the council and the administration. So I want to make sure everybody knew that. Okay. Anybody else before I end the caucus, and then we wait until 6:30 to start the regular meeting?
You know what, Mr. Gus, the IT questions, last week we got a lot of questions about the IT department, and we got some more this week. There was a lot of good questions in there. Did we ever get any of those questions answered?
No, actually, I was going to bring that up. So we did not, and honestly, I was looking at them as well, and IT is not my wheelhouse. Obviously, that those questions would be better posed, which they were posed to the mayor, who I'm assuming sent them to the IT department. Let me just pull one of them up. I think I could answer. So but to answer your question, yes, they were sent to the administration. The one question that Mr. Coyne had about, let me just pull it up here real quick. He's questioning the hire of a position in the IT department. The position that the mayor apparently filled with an employee is not a position that council vets. And the reason for that is the only position that we would provide our advice and consent to would be the IT, the director of information and technology, which would be Frank Switnicki, who has been with the city for a while and who was reappointed by Mayor Cognetti. I believe that any other position that would have to be vetted by council would have to be included as a cabinet position. So that would be at the direction of the mayor. The other questions that he lists here, again, are all questions for the IT department that I quite frankly wouldn't know, like IT infrastructure, so on and so forth. But yeah, I'm interested in the answers to those questions. So I'm hoping that we get them as soon as possible.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sounds good. I mean, that's not my wheelhouse either, but it seemed like the person we were getting them from had at least somewhat of a knowledge of IT and seemed to have pretty decent questions.
I agree. Okay, anybody else? All right. Okay, we have about 20 minutes, and then at 6:30, I'm going to kind of pause this caucus now, so anybody who's watching at home can go get a drink or use the restroom, and then we'll start up again at 6:30. Okay, thanks everyone. I'd like to call this public meeting to order. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silent reflection for our servicemen and women throughout the world, and also for those who have passed away recently in our community. Let us take a special moment of silence tonight for people in our community and throughout the world who are suffering or who have passed away from the coronavirus. May those who are sick receive the proper treatment and recover, and may their caregivers, families, and neighbors be shielded from the onslaught of this virus. Let us give solace to those who grieve the loss of their loved ones. Let us thank the doctors, nurses, researchers, and all medical professionals and first responders who seek to heal and help those affected and who put themselves at risk in the process. We continue to hope that their work may conquer this disease and restore communities to wholeness and health. Whether we are home or abroad, surrounded by many people suffering from this illness or only a few, let us stick together, endure together, mourn together, persist and prepare together, and in place of our anxiety, let us continue to hope and find peace. Thank you. Ms. Carrera, roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster,
Present.
Mr. McAndrew,
Present?
Dr. Rothchild,
Here?
Mr. Donahue,
Here.
Mr. Gaughan.
Here, thank you, Ms. Carrera. Mrs. Reed, please dispense with the reading of the minutes.
Thank you. Third order. 3A, letter of resignation from Ethics Board Member Bruce J. Reddock. 3B, correspondence received from Mayor Paige G. Cognetti dated September 11, 2020, announcing appointment of interim superintendent of police. 3C, correspondence received from OECD Executive Director dated September 10, 2020, regarding responses to CDBG funding inquiries. 3D, Controller's Report for month ending August 31, 2020. 3E, check received from Scranton Housing Authority in the amount of $66,150.44, which is payment in lieu of taxes for the city of Scranton. 3F, minutes of the non-uniform municipal pension board meeting held August 19, 2020. 3G, agenda for the non-uniform municipal pension board meeting held September 16, 2020. 3H, correspondence received from the Marine Corps League Northeast Detachment dated September 15, 2020, requesting a donation from the city. 3I, minutes of the composite pension board meeting held August 19, 2020. 3J, correspondence received from the General Theodore J. Wint, post number 25, Veterans of Foreign Wars, dated September 14, 2020, requesting funds to help with the project.
Thank you, Mrs. Reed. Are there any comments on any of the third order items?
I'd just like to make one comment. I see 3J, the VFW, and also the Marine Corps League in the request. And one thing just to keep in mind, the Trip Park Community Center is also a city community center. And when I last spoke with them, I feel like they may have even taken money out of their own pocket to pay for utilities maybe in the last month and help with winterization. So it might be something to keep in mind and reach out to them about as well.
Good point. Thank you. Anyone else on the third order items? Okay, if not received and filed, do any council members have any announcements at this time?
I have one quickly. Next Wednesday, September 30th is the last day to fill out your census forms. So if you haven't, please go to 2020census.gov and fill out your census. It's extremely important to the funding that the city is going to receive in the next 10 years.
Thank you, Kyle. Anyone else, any announcements?
Yeah, I have two of them. Once again, our friends at the Friends of the Poor tomorrow will be doing the emergency drive-through food giveaway again. It will be at Scranton High, 2:30 to 5:30. And, 663 Munchak Way, Scranton, PA. All of the criteria applies as in the past. I don't need to go through all that. I also have another one. This is a little early out, but it requires you get tickets first. So the Manuka Lions Club is going to have a chicken barbecue fundraiser on Sunday, October 18th. It's their first annual barbecue. It's a fundraiser. It's going to be homemade barbecue chicken dinner for $12 or 2 dinners for $20. That's a great deal. You get a half a chicken, baked potato, baked beans, homemade coleslaw, and a roll. It's at the YMS of R Park on Kane Street. It's pickup and takeout only. It's noon to 4. Like I said, it's a little early for that, but you need to get tickets ahead of time. You can get tickets. You can check on the Facebook page, or you can get them at Joyce's Cafe or Castaldi's Market, and ask a Lions Club member. That is all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other announcements? I have one. Council received 3 letters of interest for the 2 vacancies on the city's ethics board. Those 3 individuals were Matthew Meyer, TJ Finley, and Mike Stanilka. Council is going to take time over the next few days to review these letters of interest and resumes, and then hopefully we'll all be prepared next week to discuss them in the caucus, and then make a decision on those 2 appointments. And that's all I have. Mrs. Reed?
Fourth order, citizens' participation.
Thank you, Mrs. Reed. Will someone please make a motion to accept public comment from the following citizens? Mr. Thomas Coyne, Miss Marie Schumacher, and Mrs. Faye Franis.
I'll make
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second on the question. I'm now going to ask our city clerk, Lori Reed, to read these comments received from the public into the record. Mrs. Reed?
Thank you. The first submission by Mr. Coyne. Some of the new board members, those who joined back in January 2020 or later, missed my first few weeks in council. I was disturbed by the appointment of an IT manager for Scranton without interviews or council's input. I have no issue if it was reasonable and needed and the candidate was properly vetted for the position. But just like a major corporation, the job of the head of the IT department is the city CIO, Chief Information Officer, and should be vetted as such. On August 4, 2020, just as council oversight was off for a month, we were gifted Amanda Halleck as Information Technology Manager at $47,900 a year. I would have no issue with this, except in December of 2019, I inquired on the readiness of the city for both cyber attacks and particularly ransomware. This caught the attention of a leaving council member, and it was put forward to review based on my input of the hazards of IT and sunsetting operation systems, as well as access control policies. I was asked if a backup is good enough for recovery, and I explained the risks. This including Baltimore incurring a 3-month loss of network. They lost a lot of data as not everything was backed up and stored. A backup and a recovery is good in theory, but unless the staff has attempted a rollback recovery and has policies and separate storage systems, a rollback can only work so far. It cost Baltimore $18.2 million to restore systems and make up for lost or delayed revenue. This did not include unrecoverable data. I was told it would be looked into and I would get some feedback, but since the data is sensitive, there's only so much that can be publicly discussed. This is a little disingenuous, as IT people can discuss policy and practice without exposing a system. In the month, we have had a new IT manager who it seems may lack proper credentials for the position. Let me explain. When there is a riot, you want a great chief of police. Oops, he is gone now. When there is a major fire or plague, you want a great fire chief. Well, you get me. IT secures the city data and should be prompting options to improve stability, compliance, and providing a shared reporting resource for data, including contracts, all expenditures, a listing of all contract start and end dates that warn well in advance a contract term is ending needs attention. On August 25th, WILK Newsroom reported that Scranton officials say it was a ransomware cyber attack that affected the city's non-emergency computer systems this past weekend. In a press release, they say an investigation by third-party specialists made the determination, and they are trying to assess whether sensitive information was accessed. If they find that the security of residents or staff are affected, they will notify the public. There will be more updates as information is available. Why was a third party required? What is the cost? What has Scranton done since December 2019 to mitigate risks, as it was warned of a full 9 months prior? One submitter to council's fourth order asked why Scranton seems to be hiring as if it is a New York promotional tour. I asked, looking at Amanda Hallock's experience, I only find this: passionate about state and local digital government, equitable community development, and acronyms. And I am originally from Baltimore, Maryland, and worked in Philadelphia on community development, program evaluation, and collective impact before coming to Harvard Kennedy School. Over my time here, I've explored my passion for the impact of government administration, digital transformation, and interagency collaboration on the lives of marginalized individuals in the United States. Not a computer training school. An IT management position, one of 3 IT positions in the city, is not a place for digital transformation and impacting government administration and HR policies. The head of IT should be well-versed in the job of data protection, security, mitigation, past and current technology, zero-day exploits, as well as Windows, Apple, and Linux OS I have stored on the cloud is not a solution. What are Amanda Hallock's specific IT history? What computer training certifications does she hold? Did she work as IT management prior? And if so, how big was the corporation? And how many IT professionals was she in direct management of? Critical data and data requested for public review or counsel with fuel cards, or maybe when the feds stop by, should not be on a standard system, but separated and isolated for security. The IT manager is just as important as the fire chief or the chief of police. The IT covers all financial data, all HR data, all bills, all licenses, all email, both public and confidential. This is a position that should be vetted and not handed out like candy, and the applicant should be brought before council and the public to reply to some hard questions of qualifications and goals moving forward. Some may think I am overreacting, and some may remember. I warned you about a cyber attack risk and needs for review in December of 2019. One has now started. I warned you in early February when everyone was saying the coronavirus was just overseas and not an issue and no one needed masks, and when City Council provided feedback to my questions from the CDC guidance. I provided real information directly from Wuhan and from Johns Hopkins, including the advice to stock up on masks and personal protective equipment, including a portable UV light for sanitation in City Hall, including bathrooms, because there was going to be a run and masks and personal protective gear would become non-available. That we were looking at the front end of a major outbreak and it would be wise to get ahead, and I did it in confidence to not cause panic and knowing I may have seemed to be a little extreme on the subject. I looked to the trash and recycling and was told we pay $43 and change a ton to dispose trash. Somehow in the recent meeting The number jumped 33%. I looked and numbers did not add up from the trash fee collected and expenditures, but no one seems to know what it costs to run the DPW. This is from the mayor's reply to me after 6 months. If the city contract with the recycling is not void, the county on the hook for all losses, not the city, and we still have no idea what profit was gained and the distribution due from the recycling center from prior years. Council asked, has the question been addressed? I provided about $700,000 in budgetary savings at a glance, even doing due diligence with Scranton Tomorrow, who has an operational budget of $100,000 a year and has an excess of $500,000 now on reserves, and Scranton is handing them $225,000 a year so they can listen to local business and coordinate a web page and run services for the University of Scranton. Scranton already handed out $100,000 in April when city workers were let go and not getting a paycheck. Local business should be coordinated by the Small Business Association and the Scranton Chamber of Commerce. If they, as small business owners, need help, they have resources in each other and the internet. This COVID-19 issue will be with us into next year. We most likely have a good 9 to 12 months left to go. All non-essential spending in Scranton should be suspended. I have no issue with street cats in Naog Park and similar charity. I support animal and people-related aid, but not Scranton marketing, the trees, and beautification in our financial position. Last, we stand on the cliff of budget 2021. We are expecting revenue shortfalls, but as far as I know, other than a furlough of a few city employees, we have not changed or reduced our financial footprint. Per my prior warning and then backed up by Pell and ignored, both the police and fire contracts end on 12/31/2020. The golden package the city has handed out to both departments has to stop. Insurance and pension and other benefits now are more expensive than payroll for the staff, increasing every year at about a 4 to 7% rate, not even including payroll increases, and continue well after retirement or moving on to a second job. I do not think we should retroactively remove earned benefits, but going forward, the field has to change. All corporations long ago left pensions for a 401k matching, and none extend lifetime free benefits to wives and children of working retired members. We need to change the contract going forward and grandfather in those on the books now. We need to offer early retirement once the change has been made to those on the books to get them out and change the system. We may even have to bargain with the unions to set a percentage of the current retirement funds aside and invest them instead of the market, to invest them in a special bond issue, asking them to invest in the city that invests in them. A police fire bond that mandates the retirement of Scranton's older bonds with high interest for a protected but lower percentage, securing a set rate for stability to the retirement fund and retiring older debt at a higher rate. The silence on fixing 2020 and cutting 2021 budget is telling. Everything is now by emergency order and push forward. Contracts, employees, independent hiring of external staff as unbid contractors. We pay $100,000 to Scranton Tomorrow, but it's September and I have yet to see a street sweeper. We have a school district needing more taxes when they got an increase for last year. They are paying almost nothing on utilities and maintenance of schools without students, and they still want to tax more. Do you have a plan? Submitted by Thomas Coyne. The next submission is from Marie Schumacher. The administration, with council's accord, one must assume, put a halt to a third-party evaluation of the LIPS department in favor of an in-house LIPS evaluation. Has the council received an in-house evaluation, and what changes will be made? What is the status of the court's approval of replacing the business and licensing tax with the payroll preparation tax? Do you expect the change to be effective in the 2021 budget? Once a contract has been executed, both parties must comply unless they officially execute an amendment. A bit of digging to determine why cars are parking too close to the end of the street, endangering vision block drivers. The unofficial reason is the promised revenue the police were to bring to the coffers by moving clerical workers onto the street to enforce illegal parking. So I ask you whether this is true. If it is, and it has been done without a revised contract, I believe the city is liable for not making the police comply with the contract. A few days back, I drove down James Street toward the Mill apartment and then went right across the railroad tracks where there were two streets between James and East Scranton fields. Neither had city green and white street signs, but one had what appeared to be a homemade street sign, wood. Why do these streets have no city street signs? We are close to the fourth quarter of the year. Does the city plan make a decision on stormwater, that is authority or in-house, this year? Last week you said there is a gas card policy. Would you please tell me the URL to read this policy? When will the promised utility bill audit be available? When will the 2019 city audit be received? The third and final submission is from Faye Franis. Last week, Councilman Gaughan stated that ECTV does not receive money from the Comcast franchise fee. I am fully aware ECTV received money from Comcast, but I am specifically only speaking of the money from the Comcast franchise fee. I have asked this question previously, but it seems I must ask yet again. Number one, why is ECTV not receiving any money from the Comcast franchise fee? I have done some research and I have found the following from the FCC. Franchise fees are governed under Section 622 of the Cable Communications Act of 1984. Section 622 states that municipalities are entitled to a maximum of 5% of gross revenues derived from the operation of the cable system for the provision of cable services such as public, educational, and government access TV channels. Mr. Gaughan, you once said you would look into why ECTV was not receiving any money from the Comcast franchise fee. Number two, have you ever done that? This Cable Communication Act seems definitely to imply ECTV should indeed be getting money that the city receives from the Comcast franchise fee up to 5%. Number three, is the city going to include money in their new budget for ECTV from the Comcast franchise fee? If so, how much? Number four, what exactly does the city do with the money they receive each year from the Comcast franchise fee? Number five, does this money go into a discretionary fund? Yes or no? Number six, do you actually know how this money is being spent? If not, why not? My comments regarding my questions, please do not tell me you sent me the contract. I say this because I am not a lawyer. I don't understand contracts. Also, the people in the city need to know the answers to my questions, not just me. Anyone who pays a Comcast cable bill pays a franchise fee in their bill, so this is our money I'm asking about. I feel strongly that ECTV should be receiving money in the city's upcoming budget, up to 5% of the fees to pay their operating budget and their salaries. I do not believe they have received anything from the Comcast franchise fee in years and years, maybe over 10, which is wrong. ECTV provides wonderful services and educational programs to our community. Our county and city government meetings are also shown on ECTV, and updates from our mayor on many important happenings in the city. I also dropped off documents to show you that many cities across the country, like Portland, Oregon, pay their PEG channels millions every year to provide services to their communities, just as ECTV does for us. Please find the time to go over this document to get more familiar with how PEG channels need money from their cable franchise fees to cover their expenses. I would like as many answers to these questions tonight. Please do not give me the runaround like last week when Bill Gaughan said ECTV does not get money from the Comcast franchise fee, but never bothered to mention why they did not. What I took from that was the city does not want us to know why they have not received money from the Comcast franchise fee in years. It's time for answers that get deep into what is going to transpire as far as ECTV getting money from this Comcast franchise fee, as submitted by Faye Franis. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Reed. I'll start with the, on the question, I'll start with the ECTV comments, and I mentioned this in the caucus. So two things. Number one, ECTV does not receive any money, as I mentioned last week, from the Comcast franchise fee or the agreement. The money that they received came in installments over the last few years from a grant that was within the franchise fee agreement. This was voted on back in, I think, 2015. I talked to Mark Migliori today from ECTV. That grant has been exhausted. I think the payments came in installments of $56,000 and some odd dollars. Moving forward, I can't answer why in the past the city administrations did not grant ECTV funding other than the grant money. Moving forward, however, I have spoken months ago to ECTV officials, including Mark Migliori, as late as today. And what we're going to do is sit down with them and the administration and make sure that there is funding in the budget for ECTV operations. And the way that we're going to do that is to look at cutting out a chunk of the money that the city receives from the franchise fee agreement from Comcast. So right now we receive roughly $1 million a year based on the number of subscribers. So we'll look at how much they need to operate ECTV. Because as I mentioned in the caucus, I think ECTV is important. The programming is important, and especially being able to broadcast these meetings and other government meetings out to the public so that they can see, in fact, what's going on. So hopefully that answers the questions on ECTV. On Mr. Coyne's comments, I'll just provide a few notes here. In the one paragraph, council oversight was off for a month. I think everyone would agree with me that council, although we did not meet in the month of August, we were not off. You can ask Mrs. Reed, constant communication going on between the members and between the administration, and it didn't feel like the oversight was off for a month there at all. The questions about the IT manager. The IT manager is a position that was already in the 2020 budget. I believe what the mayor did was fill or put someone else in that position. The director, there is still a director of information and technology. That's Frank Switnicki. That is the only control council has in terms of advice and consent. So council does not have any control over who the mayor hires for an IT manager position, because that position is not it's not in the cabinet. It's not a cabinet position. In terms of the other IT questions, again, we're going to submit those to the mayor and to the IT department so that they can answer those for Mr. Coyne. Some of the other questions from last week that Mr. Coyne had raised, what has city council identified in the 2020 budget that can be removed? The 2020 budget is set. There's nothing that council can remove. We can't just say, well, we're going to take that out or take this out. That would have to be done really by the administration. So otherwise, if they don't spend money or they don't fill a position or they don't do a program or enact a program, that would be their prerogative. Is there a plan to put a hold on future funding for Scranton tomorrow, at least until budget and disruptions are resolved? I'm sure that'll be part of the discussions as we go through the 2021 budget. I also want to make a note to Mr. Coyne and I think to Mr. Schumacher and Ms. Franis, who made comments about Scranton tomorrow. It's my understanding that most of, if not all of the funding for Scranton tomorrow, at least I think in this year's budget, was provided by a pilot payment from the University of Scranton. So I think the university gives us $200 and some thousand. It's my understanding that we use that money to go towards Scranton tomorrow. So there would not have really been an effect on our budget. In terms of contract negotiations, what has been done, the council doesn't negotiate contracts. We have not done so in the past. We'll vote on the collective bargaining agreement when it comes to us, when it's on our agenda. But I know the administration is not going to discuss those conversations now because they're private. But we certainly can forward that to the administration. Again, benefits, pensions, how they're going to be handled going forward. Those are all questions for the administration, and I'm sure those are all up for discussion in the contract negotiations. And then the one question here, has the mayor's office and city council been reviewing the former bargaining agreement? And if so, when did the evaluation of the pending of the collective bargaining agreement start? I'm not sure I understand that question. Again, that would be a function of the administration. Council has their chance to review the collective bargaining agreement when it's on our agenda in front of us and we're going to vote to approve that. So I'm sure those are conversations for the administration. On to Ms. Schumacher's questions, rather. The third-party evaluation of the LIPS department, has council received an in-house evaluation and what changes will be made? No, we have not. The administration is going to be in for a September 29th caucus to discuss that subject. The status of the court's approval of replacing the business and licensing tax with the payroll preparation tax. I believe, Kyle, did we get a hearing for that?
No, we're still waiting. We're still waiting for a hearing date before the court on that. And I was going to address that too. And I mean, as do you expect the change to be effective in 2020 budget? From my perspective, I do.
Okay.
You know, so we're working towards that. We're sort of getting into the data on what we had from last year and then transferring it over into what we got from Berkheimer this year. So it is a work in progress, and there will be a proposed rate by the time that the court hearing happens. There will be a proposed rate, at least on the city side. The school district doesn't need their rate to be approved by the court, but the city does.
Okay, thank you. In terms of the other questions here with the, I'm not sure I fully understand this question about the police department and the parking enforcement division. We'll check with the police department. I'm not sure exactly what the question is there. The question is without a revised contract. I'm not, so we'll get in touch with Ms. Schumacher to see if she can clarify that. We'll forward the other items onto the appropriate department. As for the question that Ms. Schumacher posed on stormwater, we're close to the fourth quarter of the year. Does the city plan to make a decision on stormwater, whether it's the authority or in-house? I brought this up the last few weeks. We actually requested a meeting with the company that was to come in and analyze whether it would be the right move to create a city authority or to do it in-house or to create on a regional basis. So we're still waiting for an answer on that.
And Bill, just to add to that too, I mean, considering we are in September, I mean, I really wouldn't be expecting a decision to be made on that by the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Mrs. Reed, if you could send or have the administration send Ms. Schumacher the gas card policy. I know I've seen that before. I think it might have been on the agenda in third order at one point in the last few months, but if you wouldn't mind sending that to her. The utility bill audit, I've asked for quite some time about this. Mrs. Reed, if we could ask again for an update on the utility bill audit. This was a company that was hired and we approved the contract, I think last year, the year before, for a company to come in and look at the telephone bills, electric, sewer, water, everything, and see if we can find any savings. So it looked hopeful at that time, but we still have not received an update. And then in terms of when will the 2019 city audit be received? We can double check on this. I think we just received an update in the last 2 weeks. From my memory, Councilman Schuster read it into the record, but we'll double check on that and have an answer hopefully next week. And I think that's it. Again, the other questions that were posed on the IT department, we forwarded everything from last week that we couldn't answer because we did not know the specific answers for the IT department. We forwarded that on to the administration, and we'll wait to see what they come back with. Okay. Anyone else on the question in terms of citizens' comments?
Yeah, President Gaughan, it's my understanding that the two civilian parking enforcement officers were in the clerical union, and they were they were furloughed and haven't been called back yet.
Okay, I think,
I
yeah,
don't know that for sure, but that was my understanding.
okay, yep, I think you're right on that. Very good. Anyone else?
Just to answer a question we got last week regarding the numbered recyclables, in terms of the plastic recyclables that are accepted by the recycling center, the numbers that appear on the bottom of the plastic that are accepted are 1, 2, and 4. I think I said last week that I thought it was 1 through 3. I knew there was 3 of them, but 3 is excluded, and it is 1, 2, and 4.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on the question? Okay. Okay, a motion's been made, it's been seconded. We've discussed it on the question. All those in favor of the motion to accept public comment signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved. Mrs. Reed?
Fifth order, 5A motions.
Thank you, Mrs. Reed. Councilman Schuster, do you have any motions or comments at this time?
I do not.
Thank you, Councilman Schuster. Councilman McAndrew, any motions or comments at this time?
Yes, I do. I have a couple. So, Mrs. Reed, I received an email, and I think you got a copy of it, regarding a property on 152426 Caucus Avenue. I just want to go on record with this one. That property is in deplorable condition. If you zoom in on the photo attached, you will see a great deal of damage, and that most windows are covered in newspaper and or cardboard. Each morning at 10 a.m., a van arrives and about a dozen people are picked up. The group is dropped off around 10 p.m. each night. This afternoon, I witnessed 2 men handling several metal frame beds. There was another van there, but it was hard to determine if they were taking the bags into the home or removing them. I'm deeply concerned about the condition of the house, as it's most certainly a fire hazard. It would seem to me that there are far more people living there than could be considered safe. I worry about the well-being of these individuals. I realize they may not be in the jurisdiction of the list department, but I think it bears mentioning. So this was emailed to me and Mr. Oleski. Lori, I'd just like you to follow up with this. I'll send you a copy of this if you want. It'll be easier for you, because there is a photo. Okay. I don't know if you heard me. So I will forward this to you just so we get a little follow-up.
Thank you, Mark.
Also, this morning, I don't know if I sent you another one, a blight concern across the street from 930 West Market with a couple photos. Did you get that? I sent that from my phone, so I'm not sure if you got that.
Yes, I did. I received it in the photos and I forwarded it on to the lips department.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to get records for that. Also, as chairman of the Committee of Public Safety, I would like to recognize Operation Grabbing Straws. I just saw this today, that in the month of July of 2020, the Scranton Police Department, the Street Crimes Unit, in collaboration with the State Police and the District Attorney's Office, had something called Operation Grabbing Straws, where 26 individuals, adults and juveniles, were arrested, 39 criminal complaints, total of 91 felonies, 79 misdemeanors, 25 total firearms were seized, 22 search warrants were completed and executed, 5 court orders were completed. The streets of the city of Scranton are safer without these firearms in the hands of criminals. What they also state is the community support and desire to keep cities' neighborhoods peaceful is what motivates the police department's members to work around the clock. So I just like to congratulate them on their efforts with that. And that is all I have now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilman McAndrew. Dr. Rothschild, do you have any motions or comments?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilman Donahue, do you have any motions or comments at this time? Oh, you were muted.
Sorry. Yep. First off, I've been having some issues with my city email. I haven't. It says my inbox is full, but I can't sign into it. So if anyone has sent an email and I haven't gotten back to you, I apologize for that. I'm hoping to get that taken care of before next week. At the latest, we've been back and forth with the IT department, and they have a lot going on right now, so I'm trying to get that done as soon as possible. In terms of one of Ms. Schumacher's comments too, I am looking forward to hearing a plan on the internal assessment of licensing inspections next week from the administration in our caucus. And just to add on to what Mark said about the street crimes unit, the city street crimes unit is probably one of the most professional units in the state. They do a great job every day, and a lot of that goes unnoticed. So thank you, Mark, for bringing that up. Also, Ms. Reed, would we be able to ask the administration for a update on when we should get the Parks and Rec facility assessment from McLean and Associates? And besides that, that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilman Donahue.
Thank you.
I just have a few comments. First, I attended a North Scranton neighborhood meeting last evening, and there was two comments that were brought up that I'd like to address. Number one, the intersection of West Market Street and Rockwell Avenue, the neighbors were saying that the crosswalk lines were faded, and if that's a dangerous intersection, if they could be painted again, that would be great. So if we could send that to DPW. And a gentleman stopped me and asked about the status of 1517 Brick Avenue. That was condemned, and they've been told it was on the demolition list, but haven't seen action in quite some time. So if we could check on that. Also, we're waiting for an update to see what was happening with several properties in Southside that I mentioned last week. And then there's one property at 528 Birch Street that the neighbors have been really complaining about that's badly overgrown. So if we can double check on that one. I mentioned this in the caucus, but we decided to leave the capital budget on the table tonight and not take a final vote on it because we're still waiting for further information from the administration. And we wanted to make sure that all of those members of the public who submitted their questions regarding the next few years of capital spending, that those questions and concerns were answered and alleviated prior to a final vote. I do want to thank the director of OECD. I had several questions on 3 of the agenda items that dealt with the Office of Economic and Community Development. We did receive a response that will be in third order for public view next week. We received it earlier this week, so I appreciate that. I did have some questions last week about the internship program, Novembrino, the Splash Park project, and we still haven't heard back on the 900 block of Prescott Avenue and some of the issues. So we still are waiting on that. Also, I mentioned in the caucus, we received the 3 letters of interest from members of the public for the 2 positions, vacant positions on the ethics board. So we're gonna take a look at those this week and then discuss them in caucus and choose 2 new members of the ethics board. Also, I mentioned this in caucus, September 29th, we'll be having the mayor and business administrator in to give us an update on the 2020 budget impact from the coronavirus and what that looks like and how it changed for better or worse since our last update in June of 2020. And we'll also receive an update on the licensing and inspections review and the blight issues that we've talked about in the past. And that's all I have tonight. Mrs. Reed.
Thank you. 5B, for introduction, a resolution opposing the overland transportation of liquefied natural gas through the city of Scranton and its surrounding communities.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5B be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
5C, for introduction, a resolution amending resolution number 37, 2020, entitled authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials for the city of Scranton to enter into an agreement with Scranton Area Foundation, Inc. to establish the City of Scranton Small Business Fund, a pass-through fund, which will distribute grants in the amount of $2,500 to various small businesses throughout the City of Scranton as part of the City of Scranton Small Business Relief Grant Program due to the COVID-19 pandemic, to increase the number of grants authorized by Resolution number 37, 2020, from 110 to 111.
Thank you. At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5C be introduced into its proper committee.
So
So-
moved.
Second.
On the question? Yes, on the question, this is really because of a technical glitch in terms of the grant program that we previously had voted on. So one of the applicants was left off of the original list. So now they're including that and they're using money from another pot to pay this grant out. So just a technical issue. Anyone else on the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
5D for introduction of resolution ratifying and approving the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton to Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development Center for Business Financing Grants Office for a multimodal transportation funds grant to be utilized for the Lace Village Multimodal Project in the amount of $334,366.45.
At this
So-
time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5D be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
On the question?
I'd just like to say something on the question. This project was presented to us when I was on school board, probably 4 years ago. I'm glad to see that, you know, it's making progress and there's some more motion happening. So I'm happy to vote for this. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else on the question?
Yeah, I'd just like to echo Mr. McAndrew's remarks there. I also had this presented to us while on the school board, and it should be a beautiful project when completed.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add that on, that this is specific to like the sidewalks and some of the surrounding areas. And so I think that this will bring a lot to the neighborhood itself, in addition to the future residents of Lace Village. So I'm happy to vote on this tonight and for it to be introduced.
Thank you. I would agree with everyone who spoke so far. This project is extremely important to the city as a whole and also to that area of Green Ridge. The way that it ties in is going to tie in even with the Lackawanna Heritage Valley Trails is going to be really important, again, at connecting that area even to other parts of Green Ridge and to our downtown through the trail. The thing that, you know, I really think is most important is, and I know that the people who are involved in this project do as well, to make sure that the concerns and the voices of the neighbors in the immediate area were heard. And this really gives those neighbors a safe place to walk other than what's currently there now, which is not really conducive to pedestrian safety. So I agree with what everyone else said. When this project is fully completed, it's going to be beautiful, and it's really going to be a huge benefit to the city, especially in light of the great history that the Lace Works represents for the city of Scranton. Anyone else? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
5E for introduction of resolution, appointment of John Judge, 915 Electric Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18509, to the position of interim fire chief effective July 21, 2020.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5E be introduced into its proper committee.
Moved.
Second.
On the question? On the question, Mrs. Reed, if we could just ask for an update from the mayor on what the status is of the search for a fire chief I know that the mayor was doing, apparently doing a nationwide search and conducting interviews, and I'd like to know, where they're at in that process. Anyone else on the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
5F for introduction of resolution, appointment of Mary Jo Sheridan, 1213 Schlager Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18504, as city treasurer for the City of Treasury Department effective September 8, 2020.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5F be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Move. Second.
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
5G for introduction of resolution, appointment of Leonard Nemeka, 1130 Philo Street, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 18508, to the position of interim police chief effective September 12, 2020.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5G be introduced into its proper committee.
Moved.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
Sixth order, 6A reading by title, file of the council number 22, 2020. An ordinance amending file of the council number 4, 2020, entitled authorizing the mayor and other appropriate officials of the city of Scranton to take all necessary actions to implement the consolidated submission for community planning and development programs to be funded under the Community Development Block Grant Program, Home Investment Partnership Program, and Emergency Solutions Grants Program for the 5-year consolidated plan analysis of impediments to fair housing choice and annual action plan for the period beginning January 1, 2020 by amending the 2020 action plan by programming $1,649,621 in CDBG CV funds made available by the CARES Act and programming $1,435,629 in ESG CV funds made available by the CARES Act.
Thank you, Mrs. Reed. You've heard reading by title of item 6A. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that item 6A pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question? Yes, on the question. As I mentioned earlier, I had questions on this piece of legislation, and those questions were answered. One of my main concerns was the spreadsheets were a little difficult to read in the backup. So we were provided with new spreadsheets. So Mrs. Reed, I just ask if you can put those in third order if possible for next week, so that if any members of the public had a hard time reading them as well, that will be there for them to look at. And I also had questions in terms of the deadline that was set by the federal government and how they're going to oversee this new, who in OECD is going to oversee this new funding. Those questions were answered, and that'll be in third order next week if anyone wants to take a look. Anyone else on the question? All those in favor of all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
6B, reading by title, file of the council number 23, 2020. An ordinance amending file of the council number 4, 2020, entitled authorizing the mayor and other appropriate officials of the city of Scranton to take all necessary actions to implement the consolidated submission for community planning and development programs to be funded under the Community Development Block Grant Program, Home Investment Partnership Program, and Emergency Solutions Grants Program for the 5-year consolidated plan analysis of impediments to fair housing choice and annual action plan for the period beginning January 1, 2020 by amending the 2020 action plan by utilizing $80,000 under CDBG.
You've heard reading by title of item 6B. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that item 6B pass reading by title.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
6C, reading by title, file of the council number 24, 2020. An ordinance authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to apply for and execute a grant application by the City of Scranton Police Department, and if successful, a grant agreement, and accept funds related thereto through the BJA FY18 Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant Program local solicitation in the amount of $18,638 to purchase an automated license plate reader.
Sorry, it was muted. You've heard reading by title of item 6C. What is your pleasure?
I move that item 6C pass reading by title.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
On the question? All those in
I
favor?
wanted to say something on the question. So I know a couple of people
sure.
have questions. First of all, this is a tool, you know, my understanding, and it's going to be paid for by a grant. So we already have two. Another one is just makes it even better. They give more efficiency in warrants, identify stolen vehicles, and help detectives solve major crimes. In addition, license plate detections of vehicles known to be associated with threatening individuals keeps officers safe by providing awareness to these surroundings. These technology have helped people apprehend murders, killers, serial killers, drug traffickers, and child abductors. And my understanding of some concerns are that information can get out, but what I researched and found out is that that this information is just the license plate, and if you want, you have to get permission to use this information where it's protected from the Department of Motor Vehicle database. You need access to that. So it's not like they can just throw all this information out there like some people are questioning. So I just want to, I just want to let that out there. I know the police department might come back before this is final passage with some update for us, but that's my understanding. So first of all, they're being paid for. It's a safer way to do things, and I'll be for this and happy that we're getting this. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you very much. Anyone else on the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
6D, reading by title, file of the council number 25, 2020. An ordinance authorizing the City of Scranton to establish parking restrictions for a loading, unloading zone from 9:15 to 9:45 a.m., 1 o'clock p.m. to 1:30 p.m., and 6:30 p.m. to 7 o'clock p.m. along 300 Lackawanna Avenue between Penn Avenue and Wyoming Avenue for the United States Postal Service.
You've heard reading by title of item 6D. What is your pleasure?
I move that item 6D pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved.
6E, reading by title, file of the council number 26, 2020. An ordinance amending file of the council number 27, 2018, entitled, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and other appropriate officials of the City of Scranton to take all necessary actions to implement the consolidated submission for community planning and development programs to be funded under the Community Development Block Grant Program, Home Investment Partnership Program, and Emergency Solutions Grants Program for the period beginning January 1, 2019, by amending the 2019 action plan by utilizing $40,000 under the Home Investment Partnership Program for Homeowner Housing Rehabilitation Program.
You've heard reading by title of item 6E. What is your pleasure?
I pass that item 6E pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
6F, reading by title, file of the council number 27, 2020, an ordinance amending file of the council number 20, 2018, entitled, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and other appropriate officials of the city of Scranton to take all necessary actions to implement the consolidated submission for community planning and development programs to be funded under the Community Development Block Grant Program, Home Investment Partnership Program, and Emergency Solutions Grants Program for the period beginning January 1, 2018, by amending the 2018 action plan by utilizing $75,000 under the Emergency Repair Housing Rehabilitation Home Investment Partnership Program for Homeowner Housing Rehabilitation Program.
You've heard reading by title of item 6F. What is your pleasure?
I move that item 6F pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
I'd like to make a motion to table items 6B, 6E, and 6F to comply with the 30-day public comment period as required by HUD.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor and a second to table items 6B, 6E, and 6F to comply with the 30-day public comment period as required by HUD. Anyone on the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved. And 6B, 6E, and 6F are tabled.
Seventh order, 7A, for consideration by the Committee on Public Safety for adoption. Resolution number 63, 2020, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials of the city of Scranton, upon the offer of conditional employment to the Scranton Police Department, to allow participation in the Act 120 program. Applicants who accept said offer will reimburse the city of Scranton on a pro rata basis if the employee terminates employment with the city of Scranton prior to 3 years.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Public Safety?
As chairman for the Committee on Public Safety, I recommend final passage of item 7A.
Second.
Second.
On the question?
On the question,
Oh, go ahead.
so I just want to bring up quickly, it's my understanding that under this resolution, that a prospective police officer will not become an employee of the city of Scranton or receive any of the benefits awarded to employees of the city of Scranton until they receive their Act 20 certification. If upon implementation of the program, any of these individuals begin to be treated as employees prior to completing their Act 120 certification, I think council should revisit this resolution. But as long as they're not city employees until they receive the certification, I don't see any issue with it, and I will be supporting this resolution.
Anyone else on the question?
Yeah, I was also glad to hear tonight, or at least clarified to us, that they're not employees first, because that was our understanding for a couple of weeks now. So, and also, of course, I still like the fact that, you know, if they leave within 3 years, they have, there's consequences and they have to pay us back based on, you know, that. Also, and guess what? So, you know, once again, you know, they're not hired first, but we will, I'm sure we do have applicants that already have that certification. So how fair would it be to them if they're hired with that certification because they have that versus the ones that are earning towards it? So I'm happy with some of these little changes that keep happening before final passage. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the question? Okay. All the roll call, please. Ms. Carrera?
Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild,
Yes.
Mr. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Gaughan.
Yes, I hereby declare item 7A legally and lawfully adopted.
7B, for consideration by the Committee on Finance for adoption. Resolution number 64, 2020, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to apply for and execute a grant application by the city of Scranton to the redevelopment assistance capital program in the amount of $2,895,260 to repair the roof and facade of City Hall.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Finance?
As the chairperson for the Committee on Finance, I recommend final passage of item 7B.
Second.
On the question?
On the question, it's great to see that the administration is looking for a grant to replace this historic building, and good luck with that.
Anyone else on the question? Roll
Yeah,
call, please.
Yeah, I
Oh,
do.
I'm sorry,
I
Mark.
feel
Go
the
ahead.
same way. So this is a step in the right direction of keeping this asset. I know there was talk about this for the past couple of years, up in the air, whether we sell this or not. I know it's still not off the table, but I'm glad to see that the investment's being made. So in my eyes, it's a step in the right direction of keeping one of our few assets that we have left. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the question?
Yeah, sorry I'm coming back in here again, but to Mr. McAndrew's point about one of the city assets, this is an asset of this city that's been paid for by our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, and just to get that out there.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild,
Yes.
Mr. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Gaughan.
Yes, I hereby declare item 7B legally and lawfully adopted.
7C, for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for Adoption, Resolution number 65, 2020, ratifying and approving the execution and submission of the grant application by the City of Scranton to Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development, Center for Business Financing Grants Office for a multimodal transportation funds grant to be utilized for the Cedar Iron District reconstruction project in the amount of $1,546,449.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As chair for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend final passage of item 7C.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild,
Yes.
Mr. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Gaughan.
Yes, I hereby declare item 7C legally and lawfully adopted.
7D, for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for Adoption, Resolution number 66, 2020, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to apply for and execute a grant application through the Pennsylvania Department of Economic and Community Development Greenway Trails and Recreation Program in the amount of $44,903.15 to be used for emergency repairs to the Davis Trail located in Naog Park, Scranton, Pennsylvania, including replacement of 2 wooden observation decks and repairs to safety rails.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As chair for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend final passage of item 7D.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild,
Yes.
Mr. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Gaughan.
Yes, I hereby declare item 7D legally and lawfully adopted.
7E, for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for Adoption, Resolution number 67, 2020, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to apply for and execute a grant application by the City of Scranton to the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development Blight Remediation Program in the amount of $297,219.84 to implement a two-phase blight remediation project, including demolition of city-owned structures in public parks and demolition of privately owned structures that have been deemed hazardous.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As chair for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend final passage of item 7E.
Second.
On the question? On the question, I had several questions about this legislation last week. We did not receive answers to it yet. I don't want to table this because I would be concerned we'd be cutting it too close to the deadline for submission, which is next Wednesday. So I'm going to vote for this because ultimately, you know, we need the grant money. The biggest question I had was, what's the plan for after demolishing the public facilities throughout the city? And the second question was, some of these properties, particularly the one on Bernie Avenue that is listed here, it's in really rough shape. The timeline that's included in this, it has to be off because the dates I think are wrong. And my concern is that, you know, getting the grant money would be great, but we have $145,000 earmarked in this budget for demolition. So for some of these properties that really are a major safety hazard, we should tap into that money and get those properties down as quickly as possible. So, Mrs. Reed, if you could just, you know, politely ask the administration to get these answers to us by next Tuesday, I'd really appreciate that. Anyone else on the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild,
Yes.
Mr. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Gaughan.
Yes, I hereby declare item 7E legally and lawfully adopted.
7F, for consideration by the Committee on Public Works for Adoption, Resolution Number 68, 2020, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to apply for and execute a grant application by the city of Scranton to the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development Flood Mitigation Program in the amount of $322,569 to assist in the acquisition and demolition of 3 properties in Scranton's west side, 2404 Jackson Street, Scranton, PA 18504, 120 North Merrifield Avenue, Scranton, PA 18504, and 122 North Merrifield Avenue, Scranton, PA 18504.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Public Works?
As chair for the Committee on Public Works, I recommend final passage of item 7F.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the question?
On the question, last week I had asked about if there was any other structures in that zone there. Wasn't sure if there was any garages. I know those 3 properties were ones that were being looked at for a possible expansion there, but we didn't get any answers to that question, did we?
I don't believe so. Mrs. Reed, do we receive anything on 7F?
No, we did not.
All right, I guess I'd go in the same vein that you were going in there, President Gaughan, to see if there's information prior to next Tuesday.
Okay, sure, definitely. I
Thank you.
also had some questions. I support this. This is a long time coming. The people down in this area, since I've been on council, have, and well before I was on council, have suffered greatly when we get, you know, major rainstorms, and their properties have been, property values have been diminished over the years. Their homes have been, you know, damaged because of the water runoff. And I think this is, again, a long time coming, and it will help not only these property owners, but everyone else in that general vicinity. So I support this. Anyone else on the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild,
Yes.
Mr. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Gaughan.
Yes, I hereby declare item 7F legally and lawfully adopted.
7G, for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for Adoption, Resolution Number 69, 2020, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to apply for and execute a grant application by the city of Scranton to the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development Blight Remediation Program in the amount of $73,225 on behalf of West Scranton Community Development Incorporated to repair the roof and parking area of the property located at 310 North Main Avenue, as well as the closing costs to finalize the purchase of this building that will be used by West Scranton Community Development Incorporated.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As chair for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend final passage of item 7G.
Second.
On the question?
On the question, I just like to say this, you know, of course, this is a great organization, a great bunch of people involved, and I'm glad to see they're getting some fiscal help with this project. So,
Thank you. Anyone else on the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
yes.
Dr. Rothschild,
Yes.
Mr. Donahue,
Yes.
Mr. Gaughan.
Yes, I hereby declare item 7G legally and lawfully adopted. Prior to adjournment, I just want to say one thing really quick. I failed to mention this at the beginning of the meeting, and I apologize. The sobering reminder of how much of an impact this pandemic has had on the United States. It was evident today when it was announced that over 200,000 Americans have lost their lives to the coronavirus. And I think everyone in our city and in our county should think about that. Even if it hasn't affected you personally yet, think about it before you go out into a grocery store or anywhere else without a mask on. It boggles my mind. I'm shocked every time I drive by someplace or see people congregating without masks on. It's clear from the science that masks can save lives and can blunt this pandemic. So whatever you do, before you congregate or have a party or go do something, think about those 200,000 people that have passed away. Some of those lives, I believe, could have been saved if this country had acted and this federal government had acted sooner. So everyone in our city and in our county should continue to wear masks, practice social distancing when possible, and continue to follow the rules, not because anyone's civil liberties are being taken away, but because it is the patriotic thing to do. So hopefully within the next few months, this pandemic will wane, but we're still right smack dab in the middle of it. And I hope that we don't forget that as a city and as a community. And that's all I have. If there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
This meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.